What's up YouTube? Brian here, back again with another video, and today we're going to do a quick unboxing of a new flagship reel that came out at iCast. So inside of this box is the new Daiwa Tatula SV. It's the rebooted, new updated version that's on the frame of the Tatula 100 that came out last year. It's a big release for Daiwa. It's a flagship reel. They sell the crap out of Tatula SV reels. Everybody had the old version, which is what I have in my hand right here. This is the outgoing one, super popular reel. Tons of people had these. Pros use these. Average folks use these. These were a very, very successful reel for Daiwa. This thing has now been retired. We got the new version of it in the box here. We also got some other iCast releases that I ordered. So Omnia got a quick shipment of some of the Gamakatsu jigs that came out, the stealth jigs. I don't know what they're called. We'll look at, the King Cobra, I think they're called. Anyway, we're going to talk about the new Gamakatsu jigs. I'm going to take a look at those. I'm a big jig nerd, so I'm excited to check those out. I also got some stuff from Great Lakes Finesse that I want to test out this weekend out in Wisconsin, some of their new iCast stuff. So anyway, we're going to dive into this box. I'm also going to give you some quick thoughts and opinions on some high-end baitcasters that I've been using this year, such as the new Steez SV, the $850 or $800 version, the new SV Steez. I've been using this thing, and I also want to talk a little bit about the Metanium DC. I've had a lot of seat time with both of these reels. I'm going to do a quick little update on both of those. Not a full review, just let you kind of know my overall thoughts and opinions. But first, let's dive into this thing because I'm kind of excited. I want to use this reel next week ASAP, so that's why I want to pop this thing open. And I thought, hey, might as well make a video out of it because this is probably the second most hyped reel that came out at iCast, which the first is definitely going to be the Vanford FA, and when those Vanford comes out, I'm going to definitely grab one of those. But Daiwa already got the SVs out to the people, so here it is. We're going to check it out. So Daiwa seems to get their releases out way faster than Shimano does. And these seem to be kind of locked and loaded and ready to go. As soon as iCast happened, all of a sudden shops started getting these things, or they had them, but they couldn't just sell them. So anyway, point is, these are in stock right now on Omnia. They're flying out fast, though. I don't know when restocks are going to happen. So if you want to grab one of these, I'll leave a link in the description. By the way, I want to put a quick plug on my Instagram right here. So if you're not following me, definitely check me out on Instagram at Punch Fishing. Okay, so this is the old box. Obviously, these boxes are exactly the same, so we don't really need to talk about the boxes. Let's pop this thing open. I did notice that Daiwa's been using like a cloth, like a cheesecloth kind of a thing now, instead of the old plastic bags, which doesn't really matter, but I think it's kind of interesting. All right, so this is my first look at the new Daiwa Tatula SV. Now, I had the Tatula 100, the reel that came out before this that has the same platform. I lost it. It fell into a lake with a rod combo. Don't want to talk about it. No, another thing, but it's at the bottom of a lake somewhere. But I did get to use that reel a lot, and I really, really liked it. And this is essentially the same thing, except it's got the Daiwa Tatula SV Boost spool. So I think this is now the cheapest reel in Daiwa's lineup that has the Boost spool. The other reels I have it is obviously the Zillion. The Zillion is the reel that debuted with the Boost spool. And then the SV Steez has a Boost spool as well. And then I think the Steez Limited Edition had the Boost spool. I don't know exactly. But anyway, this is definitely the most affordable reel that has the SV Boost spool. So the SV Boost spool, I'm not going to go into the whole technical specs. I don't fully understand it myself. It's just that they took the SV spool, they added a spring to the cup that kind of comes out to grab the brakes in the center when the magnetic brakes are going, when you throw a cast. And it has like a secondary stage that it comes out to. So it comes out a certain amount of distance, and then it comes out a little further, and supposedly gives you more control and more distance on long casts. I honestly don't notice a difference between the Boost spool SVs and the old SVs in practical day-to-day experience. I do love the Zillion. Great reel. Is it great because of the Boost spool? Potentially. I just think it's a great reel overall. So anyway, I'm excited to try this out and see if the Boost spool really does anything that much better than the old Tatula SV. This reel was a killer skipping reel for like around $200. People love these things for skipping. You could really turn up the brakes on these things and be a really good skipper. Even if you don't have like a ton of skipping experience, this thing could really allow most people to skip a bait under a dock without too many troubles. So I hope that translates over to the new Boost spool, because in my opinion, my Zillions don't skip that great, and this thing doesn't even skip that great. in comparison to the old SVs. Now, I love my old Steez SV, and I actually prefer to skip docks with that over the new one, because that thing just, for some reason, is just an amazing dock skipping reel. This thing is a mediocre dock skipping reel for $800. But anyway, enough of the side rant. So this thing is basically just the Tatula 100 with a different spool and a different paint job and aesthetic. So the other one was a matte black with a little Tatula hit right here. This thing obviously is a gunmetal gray, semi-glossy. They got rid of the Tatula hit on the top, which I like, but they still have the spider on the side, which is the exact same aesthetics as the old one. So this is the old one. Here's them side by side. From a distance, you can't tell which is which whatsoever, because they do aesthetically look the exact same. But the top-down view is absolutely different, because the new reel has that like finger bump that Daiwa put down the center of it. Now, I will say, in full disclosure about using my Tatula 100 for a while, this is actually ergonomically very comfortable. So I think this is it's not like the most eye-pleasing. I think that looks kind of ugly to have that kind of divot down the middle of the reel. But when you put your hand and you lay your thumb in between this thing is really comfortable on the water. It's more comfortable than the old Tatula SV. So ergonomically, it is definitely an upgrade. So I do like the new frame. It feels really solid out of the box, but so did the older Tatulas. So when you took these things out of the box, pretty solid. But as you use them, they started to kind of open up and break in a little bit. And then they got kind of noisy and rattly. All my Daiwa Tatula SV reels got kind of noisy over hard use. Will this one? I guess we're going to find out. Very solid, not noisy whatsoever out of the box. So that's a good sign. But, we'll see. Fast forward a year, we'll see how this thing holds up. But anyway, I don't know what there is to really say about this. I'm going to go out and use it. I'm going to throw it on a couple different rods. We're going to try it out. I'm sure it's going to be a big hit. It's going to make a ton of money for Daiwa. It's kind of that go-to reel that most people are probably going to purchase, because it's right in that $250 range, like $200, $250. Is it going to compete with the Corrado 150 MGL, which I think is actually a little cheaper than this thing? So that's its main competition, is the Corrado, Shimano Corrado. So most people go with the Corrado. The 150 is going to be the size comparison to this thing. You also got the Shimano Corrado M, which is a slightly bigger version. But anyway, I think the Corrado is definitely the main competition for this specific reel. But anyway, yeah, kind of cool. I'm going to give it a whirl. We'll check it out. We'll test it. Since we're on the reel topic, let's talk about some of these other reels real quick before I dive into unboxing the tackle. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about this Daiwa Steez SV. I have been using this thing a lot. I've been throwing crankbaits with it. I've been throwing moving baits like swim jigs with it. I've flipped with it. It's fine. The finish is holding up really, really well, which I'm happy to report. And I'm not getting any flaking or chipping on this thing quite yet. Maybe it will down the line, but so far so good. Looks great. Looks brand new, but I've been using this thing quite a bit. I don't fully get this reel for $800. I know obviously you can get this from Japan a lot cheaper with the yen conversion. But man, this thing is not that great. It feels really hollow because it is magnesium. It's a very small reel. When you're using it, it feels very hollow, which most magnesium reels do. If you use magnesium reels a lot, you're gonna be like, yeah, so what? They all do. But because it is so flipping smooth, it feels hollow, but you're not feeling it to be too geary because of the really, really good gearing that's in these things. So I don't know how to describe this thing, but it casts stuff fine. It makes pretty decent casts. It's not like, wow, blows your mind caster. It is pretty good in the wind. It's not as good as the Met DC in the wind. By the way, we're going to talk about that next. But you know what? I just have to give this thing a big, I don't get it. I don't understand why this thing has to be so expensive and why this is the new flagship Steez. The best thing about this thing is the size. This thing fits on a rod fantastically. It is super comfortable. It is very easy to use, like Steez's should. You just click the controls, cast, do your thing. I will say, because of the really teeny adjustment knob, it's not my favorite. I like the old adjustment knob on the old Steez's that were really legible and really easy to click a lot better. I know this is basically the same adjustment knob that was on the Steez CT. So I don't know. It's not the easiest thing to adjust, but honestly, you don't have to adjust it too much too often because it's pretty dialed in once you use it. You just got to maybe click one or two directions, or one or two clicks down or up based on the wind or what baits you change. But once you get this thing kind of dialed in, it just works. So easy use is great. Looks amazing. Palm's great. But in actual use, I don't really see why you wouldn't just go buy 2 zillions for the price of one of these. But anyway, I think it's kind of a miss. I don't think these things are all that popular. I don't see a lot of people using these on my Instagram and all that stuff. So I like that. But anyway, it's a complete and utter miss at the price point. I don't fathom why you'd pay $800 for this. Anyway, just my opinion. It's good, but not like amazing. Go out and rush out and buy these things. If you don't use one of these, you are not missing really anything. Okay, so now the Met DC. I'm leaving this on my, this is on the Megabass US Destroyer Javelin because I love this rod and I still use the crap out of it. The new Metanium DC from Shimano, this reel is amazing. This thing is sick. I have really, really enjoyed using this reel way more than this thing for a couple reasons. Number one, I've been using 12-pound Tattoo fluorocarbon on this, and I've left it on the fluorocarbon setting, and I've left it on basically either 4 or 5 on the braking settings. This thing is so good in the wind. If you're throwing baits in the wind, it's a windy day, and you want to throw a jerk bait, any kind of hard bait, a jerk bait, a balsa bait, like I got a DT4 on here right now. Lightweight baits that are normally really hard to throw in the wind are amazing with this thing. You can get almost a completely normal cast, and this thing does all the work for you. So for throwing lighter baits, like if you throw a lot of light cranks, like smaller cranks, balsa cranks, lightweight cranks, this thing is sick. If you throw a lot of jerk baits, this is an amazing jerk bait rod, especially on a bait caster. But anyway, I've been so impressed with this thing. Number one, it looks sick. The piano black has really grown on me. I think this reel looks amazing on almost any rod. So the looks are fantastic. The ergonomics are great because it is the Metanium frame, which is smaller, sits pretty low, palms really well. But this reel is so much better than a regular Metanium. So if you're a Shimano nerd and you're on the fence about picking up the new Met DC and you're like, should I spend the extra money? It's great, especially if you fish in a lot of really iffy conditions, a lot of wind, throwing light baits. This thing is a complete and utter rock star. It's just, it makes me smile when I throw this like DT4 into the wind with like this. This is a longer rod, so I am using a longer rod to get really good distance on a bait like this. So you want maybe like a longer, more whippy rod to throw a thing like a balsa crank. Obviously, if you're a balsa crank nerd, you probably already know that. But anyway, point is, combined with the right kind of whippy rod and a good line, this thing is just so much fun to use. So Shimano, you hit a freaking home run with the new Metanium DC. It is a blast to use. I've been finding reasons to use it. Like I've been on lakes where the cranking bite isn't even happening, but I just like throwing this reel. So I just keep throwing a crankbait because it's like fun to just go. I'm not a big DC nerd. I'm not a huge like, hey, you need to go use DCs. But if you're going to use DCs and you got the cash, this thing is completely sick. So I give this thing a 10 out of 10, A+. Shimano hit a freaking home run with that thing. Great reel. Okay, let's dive into the tackle real quick. And then we're going to check on out of here. So first things first, this new Gamakatsu King Cobra jig. I was excited to check these out after I saw them on all the iCast, all the iCast release updates. We're going to take one of these bad boys out of the package. This is a 1/2 ounce. They are 3/0. This packaging is very kind of JDM, which I kind of like on that. We're going to pop this thing out. It looks like it has a staple. So I heard about this. This King Cobra jig has a giant flat raised lip. This thing is nuts. You guys don't think this thing is going to skip? That's exactly why I bought this. I want to try this around wood and skipping docks. This to me looks like something that's going to skip like a rock. So I bought these in the this is the black and blue color. Got a very small short shank hook, so it is a 3/0 hook. So this hook is small. It's got this weed guard is pretty light. I always adjust my weed guards, so I trim my weed guards to make them shorter, and then I'll take some material off if I'm not going to be in like super heavy cover. I'll usually make them a little lighter. But anyway, this is kind of a sick jig, but if you're buying these to go fish in the grass, keep in mind, this thing might not go through the grass super great because of how wide this sucker is. But if you're going for hard cover, like docks, rocks, wood, definitely check this out. I'm very excited to use this. I'm going to a lake tomorrow that has a lot of wood. I'm definitely going to be slapping this thing on the FMJ or the Super Destroyer, and we're going to be hitting some timber with that thing. I got some X-Zone muscleback craws to go with the black and blue. This is just in the purple shadow color, so it's half kind of black, half laminate, half purple. Okay, anyway, so let's go through a couple more. I got some of those jigs. Great Lake Finesse, I picked up their new hover minnow. So if you guys haven't heard about this, this is a minnow that they built for forward-facing sonar, but it's got an interesting bottom to it. So let's talk about this real quick. So the profile this way on the hover minnow from Great Lakes Finesse looks pretty normal, but then when you turn it, it's got a really flat bottom with like a V that goes like this. So you guys can probably see that. But anyway, so apparently this makes this thing have some really erratic movement when you put it on a ball head jig, that kind of thing. So I've been doing a lot of mid-strolling and a lot of forward-facing sonar fishing, so I want to try this because this looks kind of cool. So I'm going to probably put this on a little 1/0 ball head jig, probably a 1/8 to start with, and we're going to pop this thing around. I grabbed this color because this is going to be very perchy, which a lot of the lakes that I fish, perch is a main forage, perch and smelt, those kinds of things. So anyway, gonna give the new hover minnow from Great Lakes Finesse a whirl. I also picked up, let's see if I can find it. It's somewhere in here. They got a new jig. Okay, they have a small micro finesse jig. I'm gonna call it a micro finesse because this thing is teeny tiny. I got it in a 3/16 size. This is, I don't know what they're calling this, but it is essentially a jig that's designed to go with their little crayfish baits. So if you're a smallmouth lake and you're fishing a lot of rocks and stuff, you're probably gonna like this kind of jig head. It is teeny tiny. Look how small this guy is. Got a little teeny ball head. They gave it a big long skirt so you can make your adjustments and trim it if you want. So they did the big long skirt obviously on purpose. But this is made to go with this bad boy, the snack craw. So you got a little 2-inch snack craw. You got a little teeny tiny jig head. And putting these things together apparently makes a very good little smallmouth morsel for when you're fishing along like rock, sand, gravel, that kind of stuff. So you smallmouth guys out there, you might want to check out these little Great Lakes Finesse jigs. They're supposed to go with the snack craw, but I'm sure you could put any little like sub 3-inch crayfish finesse bait on here and it'll be perfectly fine. You don't have to use the snack craw, but these two were designed to go together. Kind of curious on the plastic keeper on this thing. Let's pull this back. So yeah, it's just got a pretty typical, nothing fancy plastic keeper on that. So you might need to use a little glue. I actually wish that was a little more intense of a plastic keeper. But anyway, we're gonna give this thing a whirl. So that is the Great Lakes Finesse. I don't know what this thing is called, but I will leave a link in the description for their new finesse jig. So we got the hover minnow, the finesse jig, and the last thing from them I wanted to check out is their bigger drop minnow. So this is something you can drop shot or put on a ball head jig as well, or any kind of like flat-headed jig head, so you can kind of like pop it and swim it along. So anyway, this is called the 3 1/4 inch drop minnow. I got it in black because I thought black would look kind of sick. I think I've been able to catch some walleyes on this thing as well. So the drop minnow is a little similar to that hover minnow as far as its shape, but it's got a pintail instead of the fork tail, and also the bottom of it is not that V like, you know, the other bait. So completely different, still very finessey. Could definitely just nose hook this thing on a drop shot. I think I'll be able to catch fish, but also a small ball head jig is probably going to be good on this as well. I actually got something to do some moping with, and they have a head that goes along with this guy. So I got this head. This is called the hanging head. So I'm going to show you guys this. This is the Great Lakes Finesse hanging head. So I got this to pair up with both the hover minnow and with the drop minnow. So hover minnow, drop minnow. This is the hanging head. Ooh, this is a really light wire hook. This is absolutely not for bait casters. This is for your light spinning tackle. So the hover head, you know, it's just got your typical, you know, sloped up ramp on the head. But man, this is a light wire hook, sticky sharp. So I'm going to pair it up with this thing, and we're going to try and catch some smallies and some walleyes on this sucker. Also, this is going to pair pretty well, I think, with the hover minnow. So we'll see how these two pair up. Yeah, so that's going to look pretty good just like that. So yeah, so their hanging head has a wider wider body to the head so that it's for moping. So that's the dropping it right underneath your trolling motor, right underneath your sonar, and just kind of jerking it up. This isn't totally meant for like swimming it out like a range roller head or a ball head jig, like if you're doing like mid strolling. I know all this gets a little confusing, but this is more of a Demiki rig moping kind of a head. Obviously, it's got a really nice ramp to go over. It could bounce on a rock, so you could throw this down on rocks and kind of like drag it and skip it over things too. So I don't know. I'm gonna try this out with both of these baits, see how it goes. We're gonna try it. We're gonna try it probably pretty soon, maybe even tomorrow, for some smallmouth and hopefully some walleyes. So anyway, cool stuff from Great Lakes Finesse from iCast. Picked up a couple things that appeal to me. Cool stuff, obviously, from Gamagatu with their new kind of hardcover jig. This thing looks crazy, the King Cobra. And obviously, really cool new stuff from Daiwa with their new flagship Tatula SV reel. Looks like it could be a winner. We're going to give it a whirl and check it out. I'm sure people are already buying these things and using them and loving them, and they're probably going to sell a million of these things. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, doing this unboxing, talking a little bit about bait casting reels, talking a little bit about tackle, and thanks for watching. Obviously, there's going to be links for all of this stuff if you want to check it out, look at prices, buy a few things down at Omnia. Appreciate the support. Until the next video, we'll see you guys later. Take it easy.